and welcome to VFX Tutors. I'm Josh, and in this tutorial we're going to be continuing with our VFX core skills for beginners. So on our previous tutorial we did some really basic sculpting in ZBrush. It probably is not even really sculpting, we just used it to break up our sort of model so that the edges were a little bit more broken up and softer, so they didn't look so perfect. And now in this tutorial we're going to go through and start doing some of the texturing. So we're going to be using Substance for this, because it's pretty easy to get going. Mari is just as good, and you can use as any software to texture in. You can use Photoshop if you want, it's no problem. For just to get something quick and easy, we can just use Substance, but you feel free to use any texturing software that you like. So this is not going to be a full-blown sort of Substance texturing tutorial. We're just going to really quickly practice. We're just going to use almost 2-3 textures and use some masks to blend them together. Then just make a really rough texture. And it's more just for you to play around, because sometimes it's just easier to play around with things and figure out some stuff for yourself. And when you get to the point where you need to know more, you can search. There are so many good tutorials out there that you can just find out exactly what you need. So the first thing that I really want to do is actually bring my base mesh into Maya again, because we exported our base mesh from ZBrush and I forgot to check the UVs before bringing it into Substance, because it's been subdivided and we want to make sure that our UVs have been relaxed. So first thing that I'm going to do, I'm just going to open up Maya and check my UVs on my base mesh. Then we're going to open up Substance. So I hope you guys have been enjoying these tutorials, and yeah, I hope you're getting a lot out of it. We will do a more complex one after this, but hopefully once it's all done, you should be able to do this all in a weekend or something. They're very quick tutorials. But anyway, I'm just blabbering on now. So yeah, if you like these tutorials, hit that like button and subscribe for more like this. So I've just opened up Maya and I've got my bird box asset from the UV stage, and we can sort of see we've got our basic bird box that we previously modeled, but we also exported out our base mesh from ZBrush. So I'm just going to go File, Import, and I'm going to go to where I exported out my ZBrush, and I should have my base mesh and my high res mesh. And I'm just going to import my base mesh. And if you haven't done this, I can upload it and you can have it as well. Cool. So the reason why I do this is we're going to get much better results from our baking and mapping if we use the mesh that was from the sculpt, which is kind of, because obviously we use this mesh as our original base mesh, but when we took it to ZBrush, we sculpted it up, and then when we brought it back down to this resolution, the base mesh will have changed slightly. So if we hide our bird box, we can actually see now there's quite a lot of difference on these edges, and this is going to help us with our baking the high res mesh on. So if we just turn on high, we can see that we've shrunken down all these sort of edges as well, and it just makes it look a little bit nicer. And it's also going to our sort of baking process is going to work a little bit better. Cool. So this is all fine, but we need to check our UVs, because also we've changed the model, but we haven't changed our UVs. So if we go to our UV editor, I can see straight away we've got some dodgy UVs here. So if we just go back on our high, and they're actually still on our high one, maybe we forgot to actually do that. We've still got our UVs from our low. So that's actually still on our high, so maybe that's actually still my fault. Yeah, it's always good to just double check before taking it into Painter, so it will save you any hassle. So all I'm going to do is just go to my UV toolkit and select all my UV shells. In fact, I'm going to select one at a time first. I'm just going to go to Arrange and Layout. No, I'm not. I'm going to go to Unfold, select Optimize. And you can keep selecting Optimize or Unfold. Just going to orientate it again. Unfold. We don't want to do that. We just want to optimize it. Because you can see if we unfold it, it might curve. bring back the curve that we don't want, but if we optimize it, it will try and keep it straight. So I'm just going to select all these and optimize. It's always good to double check you've got no overlapping UVs. Although we've already checked all this already, it's good to always just double check and go through and optimize any of it. So it's working quite well on that. So I'm just going to select all of this, and I'm spending ages doing this. And you can see how much it's changing. It's just relaxing the geometry to the new sort of edits. If we turn on our checkerboard, because it's all working really nicely. Cool, so let's just double check we've not got any overlapping UVs after doing that. Cool, so I don't want to waste any more time in this, so I'm just going to bird box. See, we've got a namespace on this now, so I'm just going to delete all the history. I'm going to go to my Windows, General Editors, and Namespace Editor. You can see we've got all this in here. We can just get rid of all that. Just merge with root and it gets rid of it all. And now we can call this our proper bird box Z base mesh. Geo. And I won't bring in the high because it might take a little bit long. So I'm just going to go File, Export Selection, and in fact, you know what? I'm just going to double select that, copy, go File, Export Selection. I'm just going to call this VO2, Birdbox Z base mesh, VO2. Yep. No, not VO1. I thought about 2. Cool. And now we've exported that out. So now we can just go straight into Substance and load that in. Cool. So this is Substance. I'm not going to go through every single thing. We're just going to get our models in and just get going. So the first thing that we want to do is go straight up to File and go New. And this should open up our new project. And this is all fairly simple to do. We want to leave our template as PBR Metallic Roughness. And at the top here we have File. If you can select. And you want to navigate to your base mesh, so our Birdbox base mesh VO2. Then our project settings. I want to put it as maxed out as possible. It's only a small asset for VFX. For other ones, it really depends on your computers as well. You can do 248, but I'm just going to do it as 4K. But we can change this in our workspace anyway. And we pretty much want to leave everything else as it is. Because we're going to use our UV tile workflow and just select OK. And now you can see on our left, if we minimize this, we can now see we've got our base mesh on the left from ZBrush, and on the right we've got our UVs. So you can set this up any way you want, and you can sort of see in here, you can have as many UDIMs as you probably want. You don't want to go past 10, to be honest, but this is obviously, this is okay for what we're doing, but although Substance does handle UDIMs, it's not the fastest if you have loads, so be aware of that. That's where you probably want Mari for if you've got loads of UDIMs. But for something small and simple, this will be absolutely fine. Cool, so we've got our model on the left and our UVs on the right. I do tend to actually quite like working like this, but you can change it however you want. Up at the top, I won't go through all of these because we're just going to do it as we go along. You can see we've got a base color, height, and we won't see anything because we've got nothing on there yet. And down here we've got loads of textures, so you can almost just like click and drag and drop it on, and then we got a gold bird box, but we don't want to do that, so I'm just going to undo that. So when you bring in your model, the first thing that you really want to do is go to your texture settings. And if you scroll down, you should see bake mesh maps. And it should open up this baking window. This is pretty good for baking all your sort of maps, your normals and your world space and your ambient occlusions. So I'm just going to go up to the top, output size, and select 4K. Then now what we want to go to high definition meshes. I'm just going to use my bird box high, select open. Now this is going to use all the sort of high res detail to bake the maps onto here. And you can do this in other software as well. You can do this in ZBrush, do it in Maya as well. And for now, we're not actually going to change any of this. Ambient occlusion does work the fastest, so sometimes it's good just to turn them all off. And it's almost like I'd only, if it's like a model that's just come from nowhere, I would just turn the ambient occlusion on because it bakes the fastest. I think it bakes pretty fast, but it also will show us if there are any sort of errors in our UVs or anything like that. Anything that's like slightly wrong. It shouldn't take too long. I don't know, I might have to eat my hat if it does take ages. Cool, let's go. You can sort of see it's baking the ambient occlusion onto the model, and you can see it's picking up the high res mesh. And on the right here, you can see it's picking it up in the UVs. So this is only a sort of past the check if it's all your UVs are working, because you don't want to select them all, then just go and sit around for because sometimes it could take hours. This won't take hours, though. This might take a while, but it's not going to be hours. It's always good just to do your ambient occlusion one first and just have a look at it, see if there's anything really dodgy going on. And it shouldn't take too long. Cool. Select OK. Select ambient occlusion. And let's just look around. And it'll be really obvious if you've got some really dodgy stuff going on with your mesh. And that seems all right. Obviously it's a bit, but it all seems pretty good. The ambient occlusion doing exactly what it wants. And we're just doing it as a check for any sort of crazy stuff in our UVs. But it all seems pretty fine. So with that done, we can just go and bake mesh maps. Also, we don't have to do that again. I don't think we need thickness because we're not doing any subsurface, so we could probably... No, let's just leave it on anyway. We're probably not going to use it, but it might be useful if you want to have a look. So I'm just going to select all these and just click Bake Selected Textures. And this is going to go through and just bake all of them. And this might take a while. You can see it started off with the world space normals. And all this sort of stuff is going to help us with our smart materials. And this is why we're just going to use Substance for this, because it's a really small sort of asset. And I think in reality, if we were doing something this close, you'd still do it in Substance, but you'd probably spend more time on it than I'm doing. I just want to do this really quick so we can just get something fast and just get something looked, dev'd and rendered. And it will just give you an idea of what sort of area you enjoy the most. This isn't a series on how to do everything perfect. It's just giving you a taste of as many parts of the pipeline as possible, because it's the best way to get to know what you really enjoy. It's just to try something at least once. And you might find that you just love modeling or you just love texturing. Then after this, after you've gone through and tried and you found what you really enjoy, there are tons of YouTube tutorials on there. There's tons of people giving stuff for free and all willing to help you on your journey to becoming an artist. So yeah, and yeah, it's just a good sort of eye-opener to sort of what you might enjoy. And it's still going through all the bakes, so depending on how fast your computer is, you might want to get a snack or go get a cup of tea or coffee. So you can see which its map's going through. It will say which ones it's going through. It'll show you the sort of benefits of each map will give us. Let's pull this over to the side so we can see it. And if you've got a really big model, or like it's a really complex model, obviously this takes a lot longer. For what we're doing, takes quite a long time for a bird box. My computer's not the best, but yeah, this is going to be a really simple tutorial. This is not going to be showing most people, if they've done Substance for a month, will already know how to do half of this, or most of this, sorry. And I've already got some textures that we'll use as well that you can download. Cool, so that's finished baking. And you just select OK, and we can look around, and we're still in the Ambient Occlusion. We can look at our normal maps, and we can't see anything because we haven't got any normal maps on there. But our Wild Space Normal we should be able to see. ID, there's no IDs on it because I didn't set that up. But you can do that another time. You've got our curvature maps, which get masked out for our curves. Position, for position gradients. And yeah, so I'm just going to go on here. So that's pretty much all baked out, and we're ready to start texturing. So in the link, the description, you should have a link to these textures. So what I'm going to do is go to import resources down at the bottom left here. It's like a little box with an arrow. And I'm just going to add resources. Go to data, and you should have a texture folder, and it's called wood. And so we've got these two folders here, and these are just tileable textures. So I want to, select all of these, select open, and add the other resources as well. The mossy ones. And we'll just define these all to texture. No, all imported. Sorry, I thought that was a quick way to do this, but I'm sure there probably is a quick way to do this, other than to select them all manually. But you may want another place. But anyway, so import your resources too, and I'll just do it to current session and select import. So now it's imported in our textures that we're going to use. So if you know Photoshop, this works very similar to Photoshop. If you go to our layers, it's pretty self-explanatory. So we've got our first layer, which is this one here. We can draw on it. Obviously, we don't want to do that. You can see as we draw on it over there, we're also drawing on it over here, and vice versa. So you have the ability to draw on, paint on your model, and paint on your UVs. So I'm just going to undo that. So if you've used Photoshop before, like always, you want to work in layers. And the first thing that we're going to do is just our base layer. So as I remember when we UV'd this, we made sure that everything going up is going up, and everything going down is down, and left is right, and left is left, and right is right. So I'm just going to rename this to my wood base. And it's really important to rename these to something logical, just in case someone else picks it up, or you need to come back to it, or you end up coming back to this like 8 months later and you don't know what's going on. So I'm just going to right click, and it'll open up all this, and I'm just going to add fill. Oh, frozen, but yeah. So what I am also going to do, if I go to my texture settings, I'm going to change my working resolution to 2K because we can switch this back afterwards. So we'll take a little bit of time to switch back. But this means that when we sort of change between our shaders, our smart materials, it will work a little bit faster. Oh, it's really slow today. Cool. Cool, so we made our fill. And if we scroll down here in our properties, we've got some tabs here. And it's fairly self-explanatory. What I'm going to do, I'm going to start with my base, which is just my wood planks. So I'm just going to click and drag it into the base color. And you can see, now that's put my wood planks on. You see that's all the wood's going up and going the correct way. So before I add these on, I'm actually going to sort out the tiling on this first. So I want to make it look a little bit less planky and more like these are actually slots. And try and find a decent sort of place to put that. And it's more just for you to have a play around and see where you're going with stuff. Doesn't have to be perfect. Just have a play with stuff. And I'm fairly happy with that. It looks alright. It's not the best, but don't forget we're only seeing it in a 2K resolution as well. So now we've done that, we can just probably go to our, which one's this? This is likely our roughness, but anyway, we can change that anyway. I'm just going to click and drag our normal onto there as well. So now if I select my normal, we can see that isn't tiling. Let's have a look at our roughness. Oh. Our roughness is correct. Oh no, it's just there's a lump. Oh no. Let's try on our height. Maybe that normal's a bit dodgy. Cool. So we can see that we've got our height map in there now. It's looking a bit extreme. So what we can do is go to our let's add a right click and add a levels. Sorry, I did that really quick. So I'm going to go up to my wood base, right click, add levels. And we get the affected channel and we can select our height. And you can see if we shift this, we're changing how the height map reacts. So let's invert this because I think it's the wrong way around. Let's just have a play with it. We're not making Oscar-winning textures here. We just want to get something really basic and quick. Let's have a look at our roughness. So we want these sort of lighter bits to be shiny and so you can see how that's now affecting it and it's making everything look wet. We've got it the wrong way around. I think our bumps. So you don't need loads, it's mostly subtle stuff, but let's get that bump down. I wonder why the normal map. It's not. Let's not worry about it. Cool, so we've done this really rough base mesh, and what we can do is click on this little camera up here, and this will open up the Ira Render. And this will just show us a really basic render of what we've done so far. And you can see it's pretty basic, it's nothing special. Yeah, that's pretty much what we want to be doing. So let's click on the camera again and come out of that. So what we've got here as well, we've sort of almost textured over our screws, which we kind of don't want to do. So one thing that we can do is add a mask. So if we add a black mask, that's now going to mask everything out. If I undo that, right back and add a white mask, anything that we now paint black will be removed. So if we go to our screws and stuff, let's add a paint so we can paint it on. And if we go over to here to, which one is it? Oop. Polygon fill. If we change this to black, these now should be masked out. So what we've done, we've just added a white mask, then just put a paint layer on that. And you can see now that's masked out. Because we don't want that being all wood and stuff. Cool, so we've done that. So we've done our wood base. It's looking pretty basic. So now we want to add our next layer. So if you right click, wait, actually don't have to right click, we can go up to here and we can add a fill layer, smart material, paint layer, mask, and add effect. What we want to do, we want to add a fill layer. And we'll call this wood moss. Now we can sort of see our bump, and it looks like it is backwards, so sorry about that. That looks better. It's always good to check with shiny material. But I do wonder why Invert display. Anyway, let's not worry about that. Of course, we've done our wood moss. So I'm not going to put this on yet, we'll put it on afterwards, but I just want to show you the sort of masks that we do. So I'm just going to go down here to the left, which has all your sort of tools as well. So we've got project, alphas, grunge, procedurals, and we won't go into all this because it's just loads of other stuff. We just want to make it really basic. So we want to go to our smart masks, and these are really good. They're not called smart masks for no reason. These work really well with the maps. Every time I look at this, it feels like I've got way too much on that height. It still feels like you're not really subtle. And like I say in the look dev, we can just crank it up a little bit because we can always change this in the look dev afterwards. Anyway, so we've got all these masks, and we kind of want to look for something that's going to be useful for us. So we've got dirt, cavities, dirt, and there's a moss from, I think that's moss from top, which could be pretty useful. So let's, if you just click and drag this onto the wood moss, you can see it's going to load now. The reason why I didn't put any textures on, so now hopefully we should see it with just the white, and you can see how this has affected it now. So I always find it easier to do the first sort of pass of your masking with just white material. So dragging that on should have made us a mask builder legacy. And we can scroll down to the right, we can click and drag. It should hopefully update quite quickly. And you just kind of want to have, hopefully it shouldn't take too long. You can see how it's, if you have loads and loads of UDIMs, this will take much longer. And you can play around with these sliders and try and get the best sort of, like this is not, we're not following reference here. We're just at, because I think at the stage when you're just learning, it's actually really difficult to follow reference because you just get frustrated on not knowing how to do stuff. So it's more just have fun, play around with the tools, and just see what it does. So I'm just going to add some more top-down gradient, a little bit less ambient occlusion. And when you're playing around with these things, you start to understand what it's all doing. So I kind of feel it's a little bit too much under here. So let's turn it down in our ambient occlusion. You can see how it's reducing here. I'm just going to bring up my world space normal. Hopefully that should build up here. Or top down gradient, sorry. Cool, so we've got something that's fairly, it's alright, it's not amazing. It's pretty basic. So I'm now just going to go to my texture and just put my base color on, which is in textures. So I can use my wood moss base color. And now it's going to start switching it out in here. And displacements, roughness. Let's see if the normal's working on this one. I probably should have checked that the normal's working, to be honest. So let's turn that off. And turn that mask off. That should be right. Okay, as we see, we've added in this sort of mossy lumps. So a height, so stick that into the bump. You can see it's given us quite a crazy result. So just right click and add levels. I'm just going to go to my height. And I'm just going to reduce it. I've got some black lines here, which I think's probably so this is not amazing, but it's something you can play around with. Seems a bit too much. Oh no, that's the wrong one. No, I shouldn't, but I'm just going to swap it out. A little bit more subtle now. So we need to tile this probably a bit more similar to what we have. It's got autosave on, so make sure. So if we go onto our wood base, fill, and we've got our scale on 0.35, and let's see if it will be the same, or roughly. And we can just move this around till we get a place that we kind of like. Just have some fun with it. It doesn't have to be perfect. But yeah, it's just try things out. So I'm actually going to name this wood moss top. Then I'm pretty happy with the top. It's not the best, so I'm just going to make another fill layer. I'm just going to call this wood dirt bottom. And hopefully it won't take too long doing this. Cool, and we'll add a fill. And you know what, I'm going to use the same wood. Make sure it's the same, 0.35 minus 0.42 minus 0.42. So it's exactly the same. I'm just gonna where is it? Rough. I actually used the roughness and the height last time, so it's a little bit more subtle. Obviously we've doubled up on that, so add the levels to a height. And we can always change this and look dev afterwards. Cool. So we've now done that, but obviously this is the same color, so we actually want to change our base color as well. Let's play around with some of the colors. Let's get it a bit darker. So it looks a bit dirtier. All I'm going to do is go to my smart masks and grounder. Like, a lot of these are pretty self-explanatory, so you can try any one you want. You don't have to do the ones I'm doing. Most of the time, these will give you what you want. So let's just go ground dirt, drag it onto the wood bottom, and you can see it's sort of giving us some ground dirt. It's a little bit extreme at the moment. But what we can do is go to our mask editor. Could probably put a lot more on our ambient occlusion. And we can bring it up and match. So I'm not sure about this. Texture, so texture. Let's change our procedural texture to different one. These are all pretty good. They've all got their sort of unique sort of, let's try that one. And just have a little play around and stuff. I know that's not going into too much detail. It's a little bit less crazy like it was before. Although, you know, I think what I will do is actually remove that height. It's too much. Oh, I've got something. Oh, it's just glitched out or something. Oh no, world space normal was a bit too high. You can see we're sort of breaking it up. It's kind of a bit like oddly sided now. But what we can do is also get some dirt on there or something. So I am also going to, so we've darkened it up. Let's add another fill layer. More dirt. That's probably not the best naming, but over. I'm just going to add a fill. And what we're going to do, we're just going to have something that's got dirt all over. Try and find a mask, which is quite dirt dusty, rust. Like I say, you can just try any one you want, really. Let's try and find paint old. We don't want paint old. Let's just try dirt. See where this gets us. You know, sometimes it's easier to change everything to red. And you should. Oh, make sure you change your actual base. Cool. Yeah, that makes sense. So you can see where your dirt's being affected. Also, we don't want it too much, but we do want it all over. Sometimes it's just easier to see. Add more texture, texture 2. See how this changes between two of them. So you kind of just want to play around. And whatever, we're not following a reference, which obviously in texturing you really should. I don't think this will do anything to this. Or maybe it is. It's kind of almost looking a little bit like paint now, to be honest. So we actually don't want any of that world space, nor I don't think. Cool, so we've got our dirt all over, so I'm actually just going to go to material, textures, and I'm just going to use the wood moss again. Oh, and I put that in the wrong one again, sorry. So we've got some more green dirt. Just get some more bump on that. I don't want it kind of getting quite a lot of green, so what I'm going to do, I'm just going to add levels. And let's just play around. See what we get. It's not looking too bad. We need to reduce that height though. Oh. So we've done a lot of procedural masks and stuff like that, but we've added a not really much, because this is not, we can have a look and see what it looks like by clicking the little camera. So if we zoom out, so this is not a tutorial on how to do the best textures, it's just really quick rough ideas on what you can get away with. This is a little bit, we could dirty this up a bit more. Yeah, so we've done that. So let's actually, we've had some pursuits. Let's do some painting, I guess. We have actually painted over these nails as well by accident. So let's add a paint layer. And this is basically just going to allow us to paint all over it. We don't want to do that though. Cool, so let's go on our paint layer and have a look at some of these materials. And what I use quite a lot is actually the rust fine to paint, but I change the colours. And if I just go to my brushes, and we can pick a brush. Let's pick dirt one. So you don't want a rust colour like that. Let's go quite dark. And we can just add some more darkness onto there. And just have a little play around, really. So we can add some more dirt under here. So this is not a pro texturing tutorial, it's just something to get us having a bit of fun with. You can sort of paint your own sort of things on. You have your size up here, so you can change the size of that. You can also paint onto your limbs as well. a bit too dark. Let's not do that. Bring the opacity down. So I'm actually going to go up to, where is it? Paint. That should be all right, actually. I'm just really not doing anything too insane here. You obviously want to spend more time. You don't want to be... And obviously the more time you spend on it, the better it will be. But mine's kind of starting to look a little bit... This is why it's also pretty important to stick to reference, because I think I've probably gone a bit over the top of the moss. It kind of looks like it's been burnt a bit, which is not really what I wanted, but I think that should be all right. And I know that it's not right in here, but let's not worry about that. So just extra dirt dark. Cool. So now let's add a fill layer. Let's call this nails. 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 Add a white mask. Sorry, no, let's add a black mask. I always get them mixed up. No matter how many times I do this, I just always get them mixed up. And I'm just going to add paint. I'm just going to select all of them. Got some bump on here. I'm not too bothered about that. That's just come from something else. Yeah, let's just leave it. Cool. I'm just going to go to my paint layer and add a paint. And if we just paint over these, the same brush. Ooh. In fact, let's actually just use a fill. Smart materials, and you've got loads of smart material stuff here, but it's good just to sort of play around with stuff first. See, those are super orange. They've got some bump on there from something else, but it'll be fine. Cool, so let's, and I've probably rushed through that quite quickly. Let's just see what it looks like. So I don't want to spend ages and ages on this. I think it's already been an hour. So I kind of want this to be something that you can just do on a weekend once they're all done, and you can play around with it as much as you want, really. Cool. So I think we're done. It's not amazing, but it will do for what I'm trying to sort of show. So make sure you save it. We'll just save in here for substance. And we'll just call it bird box. Cool. So obviously you want to spend way more time doing that, but for the sake of this, we can just get through. And you've had a little taster and just play around with it. And there's tons of other tutorials on it as well. So we're pretty much done. So I'm actually going to go back to my size and change it back to 4K. This might take a little bit of... Oh no, yeah, it's going. So I'll start updating everything back to 4K. So we will get our maximum sort of resolution now. And we can always change... We'll probably change a lot of some of this in the look dev. But I really don't want to make it go over an hour for something that's really not that well textured. But hope you've been enjoying these series. Yeah, it's just more of an eye-opener to what parts of the pipeline you might enjoy. And now we're done, we'll probably just export all these materials out. Then in the next one, we will load it all in Maya and do a look dev. So we'll build a very quick look dev rig and test this out in a sort of a neutral lighting situation and with our HDRI. Cool, so that's now switched out. You can see that our textures are much higher res now. So I'm just going to go File, Export Textures. So what we want to do is go to our output template or list of exports, and we want to make sure that our... Well, this is what's going to export basically, and we want to make sure that it's for our UDIMs. So we need to make sure that our settings document channels plus null and AO with alpha, I believe. Cool, yes, now it's been renamed to 1001, 1002. And our Arnold AI standard. So now that should be correct, because we're going to be using Arnold and Maya. So let's just check all our stuff. We've got documents plus null plus AO. We don't need alpha on it, it should be fine. File type PNG. We'll leave it on 8-bit. It doesn't matter for this. It's not amazing. We could do 8K. See how long it takes. Yeah, let's try it. 8K is probably like massively overkill. Let's try it. In fact, let's just leave it on 4K. And output templates, list of exports, and let's open output directory first. Not IO, yeah, IO, sorry, but I've made a bit of a mess of this actually. Tried to keep it tidy. Textures. So that's just opened up there, but that's actually not where it's going. It's going there. Sorry, I just did something really stupid. Cool. Now it's going there to the right place. And we'll just leave this on. Yeah, we'll just leave it on that. And we'll select export. And this is going to go through all of these and export all these UDIMs and each UDIM tile for each of the senses. It's got base color, height, metallic, mixed, AO, and all that sort of stuff. Some of the stuff we don't actually probably need, but let's not worry about that. This might take a little bit of time, so I might actually fast forward through this if it takes a long time. But yeah, we're pretty much done. I know this has not been a tutorial on how to master Substance. It's more of just how to get it open, play around. I'm not expecting the whole series is not to get an amazing masterpiece. It's to give you an idea. So don't worry if you're struggling at some points. Time and practice will always help. So don't worry, and just have fun with it. That's the most thing. If you find that you're having fun with something, you'll learn much faster. Cool. So that's now finally done. So our next step is to sort of go back into Maya and set up our shaders and do a little bit of look dev. So if you just come in just under, I think just about an hour. So yeah, so we're pretty much done. So hope you've enjoyed that. I know it's not been the best sort of tutorial on how to master Substance, if it's anything but that, but hopefully you've got your bird box in there and you've put some textures on it. So if you've done that, you've already started learning something, so that's all good. So yeah, if you've enjoyed this tutorial, don't forget to hit that like button, and every like and subscribe really does help, and thank you guys for watching, and see you in the next one.